Okay, so welcome. This is honestly, in all the years I've been doing workshops, this is absolutely the most important workshop that I've ever done. And the reason why is because it is fundamental to every other single thing that we do in our lives. How we think and how we look and the view that we have on our world is completely, everything is dependent on how we look at things. So what this is about empowering you and teaching you some things that you've probably never thought about up until now. Maybe you have, but you haven't really had direction in how to think about it. So the purpose of this tonight is to make you think. It is to make you start to look at the way in which you think of things and think of your world and think of the relationships that you have, your finances, your career, your just health and fitness, your intellect, your character. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to start to look at how you start to interpret it in a different light and how you blaze a new path so that you can start going in a different direction. It doesn't matter age, doesn't matter where you're at. That's what's happened in the past. Now we can actually start to get clear on things so we can start looking for it. Sound good? I guarantee you by the end of this, if you don't feel like this was just, let me know, because then I'm going to make a change to it. But if you feel like it was awesome, write something on our Facebook page or something and let other people, because this one, I don't know why, but of all of the workshops I do, for whatever reason, this one seems to be the least attended, only because I think it scares people. I think it worries people to start to look at some of the things that we're going to talk about. And that doesn't mean we're all going to be sitting here crying and, talking about our woes, not anything of the sort. But I think that's what people think when they start thinking about it. And how, as a chiropractor, know anything about this stuff? I'll tell you the honest truth. I probably spent $40,000 plus investing in myself, learning this stuff, and I'm going to teach it to you, especially the thing that I'm going to send you home with. My wife and I paid $7,500 alone just to go to Chicago to learn what I'm going to teach you. But I'm going to show you how to do it, and you're going to do it on your own. Okay? So, here's the deal. And some questions to kind of warm things up. Do you love your job? Do you have an amazing relationship with your kids? Do you have an epic love affair with your partner? Do you have friends that share your values? Do you know what you want in life? Do you do things or behave in certain ways to appease other people? Do you know your gifts, talents, and strengths? Are you happy? Do you love your life? Do you enjoy it? Here's the deal. 11% of men, 16% of women are quote-unquote depressed. The number of unhappy employees outweighs the happy ones by a ratio of 2 to 1. And the question is, do we like who we see in the mirror? Do we like what we see in the mirror, right? And so when we have a vision for our lives, and that's the thing, and the question that I have for you is, what is the vision for your life? What is the vision for your relationships, whether it be with a partner or whether it be with your friends or your kids, your social life? What is the relationship or the vision that you have for your health and your fitness? Like I said, what is the vision that you have for a relationship with your kids? What is the vision that you have for this world that we live in? Let's face it, this world is a pretty sticky situation as it is right now, right? But how do we have an impact on our world immediately within our own community? And how do we have an impact on those that has a ripple effect that can go out and start to affect other people, right? You hear about this stuff all the time. Pay It Forward is a classic example of how it ripples and starts to create a positive effect. There was one just the other day, I heard about a girl who is in New York City. 2 firefighters came in from slugging it out with a fire all night. They were exhausted. They said, give us the strongest cup of coffee you've ever had. She sat them down. She gave them their breakfast. She said, this breakfast is on me. Thank you for fighting fires. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for running in when everybody else is running out. They come to find out who she is, and it found out that her father had been paralyzed as a quadriplegic 2 years prior and needed $17,000 to get a new wheelchair. Together, those 2 firefighters raised $70,000 within 48 hours and now has transformed not only that family, but has then led on to other projects that are now affecting other people that are in need just the same. So pretty cool. Here's the deal. I believe that every single human being was born to be extraordinary. I believe that each of us has within us gifts, talents, and strengths that we maybe haven't identified, but they're there, I guarantee you. Each of us has a purpose. If you look at your fingers, right, these fingers can build the Eiffel Tower, they can play a concerto on the piano, They can write a love letter. They can, play with your iPhone. They can do just about anything. And if you look at the uniqueness of your fingerprints, nobody else has those same fingerprints, right? Nobody else has the same uniqueness of the colors within the iris of your eye. And so when we talk about how unique we are, it all started way back when, right? If you remember this stage in your life? No? The cool part about this picture is the first one that got there is it outraced all the rest of them, right? So like you were already a champion, you didn't even know it, right? And so the cool part is that within that makeup, you have the potential to become the fastest man in the world, to be able to build the empire that is Apple, to be able to continue to make, music, to be able to run a company, to be able to work in that company and provide extreme high value for that company in such a profound way that it provides food for your family and be able to take your kids to dance and be able to do all the things that you need to do, right? This is exactly our uniqueness. And within each of us, we've got this unbelievable power to be able to explore, but we just got to get the stuff out of the way so that we can tap into it, okay? So you think about all of your accomplishments, and this is something I often go back and think about, especially like this morning. Our daughter's trying to get out to school, and she's having a complete meltdown. She's working on rainbow loom, and she's sweet. She's trying to make a rainbow loom for a friend of ours who lost their dog. And so I said, why don't you make like a little rainbow loom tree ornament for them, so that way they can remember their lost dog. And so she's all excited. So she didn't like the final product. So she had to tear it all apart before school. And she had to do it because she wanted to accomplish this, right? But you think about all those accomplishments that you've ever had in your life, and all the trials and tribulations and the failures and then the successes and all of those things. You think about all of the highs of your life and all the things that you've been able to share with other people. Those are all celebrations of that life that has been lived, right? So the question I have is that if we are extraordinary, we know that we're born to be extraordinary and that we have these unique gifts, then why are we always so sick and so unhappy, right? And a lot of people are, unfortunately. It's like, if our bodies are so smart, why do they break down? Why do they get sick? If our intellect is so high and we're able to accomplish things, why haven't I done that? And honestly, I would say that we've got the right blueprints. We just maybe be reading the instructions wrong. So now what we're going to try and do is change the instructions and our interpretations of them, okay? But it relies on one thing, and that is we've got to have consistency in how we do things. So this is going to be central to everything else we're going to talk about, because if I have a wilting flower, what's the first thing we think that it requires? Water, right? It needs water, it needs soil, it needs sunlight, okay? Those are requirements for it to express itself as the most beautiful flower that it possibly could be, okay? We have certain requirements that we must satisfy in order to be the best and do and have all the things that we have to do. Does that make sense? There's certain things that we require to be healthy. There's certain things that we require to have intellect. There's certain things that we require to be able to perform at the highest level of in any occasion, okay? And so what it relies on is this formula. I call it the Peter formula. You can see why. So we've got to have the right premise or the right correct philosophy. We've got to have effort. We've got to have time. And if we have all those things in the highest amount possible, we're going to have extraordinary results. If we have a great philosophy, we've put in no effort, and we haven't given it any time, we're not going to get there. If we have the wrong philosophy and we're really gung-ho and we're giving it the effort and we're doing it for a long period of time, we're not going to get the extraordinary results, right? This is one of the most frustrating things for folks, because what happens here often is, and this applies to many different disciplines, but let's take health and fitness, for instance. If we have the correct philosophy, if we have the wrong philosophy of how to exercise, and we give it lots of effort and lots of time, we don't get the best results that we possibly can. Point an example. I used to do personal training when I was out of university before chiropractic college. And one of the things I would see is the same people going in and jumping on the treadmill and doing their 45 minutes to an hour and a half, and they looked the exact same for the 2 years I was there. Nothing changed, right? Their health status didn't really change. Their body didn't change, and they were frustrated. And I said, well, maybe you've got to look at the right philosophy You're giving the effort, you're putting in the time, but you're not getting the results that you're seeking. So we got to look at how you're doing things. That is going to be key. Okay? So before we get into that, let's take a little step back, because health is one of the easiest ones and one of my passions that I want to explore. But when we talk about health, what we understand is, again, we have this extraordinary body. We know that it's born to be extraordinary. We know that it's born to be unique. But it's our choices that determine the outcomes of whether or not we're going to start to express health and fulfill those requirements or not. Does that make sense, everybody? So epigenetics is the role. If you understand genes, there's the whole gene code that we have. Well, outside of that, in recent years, they've discovered that there's a whole nother part of it. It's almost like my arm is the genetic code, but it's the sleeve of my shirt that is around the genetic code that expresses whether that piece of the gene gets transcripted and read and expressed. And what I mean by that is 50% of women have been told that they have breast cancer. 50% of them, or breast cancer genes, 50% of them never get breast cancer, and 50% of them get breast cancer. So they ask themselves, well, why is it that if they have the gene, why aren't they expressing breast cancer? Why are they not showing that they have breast cancer? And the answer lies in the epigenetic coding, which means that the outside of that genetic code gets either turned on or turned off based on the environmental exposures we have and the choices that we take on a day-to-day basis that either turn on those genes or turn them off. Point and example is Dean Ornish, who is a famous cardiologist. He got really, really tired of seeing people under the age of 40 on his operating table for heart disease. And he started asking himself, why am I seeing so many of these cases younger and younger and younger? This is really getting frustrating because I'm used to seeing the 70-year-olds, the 80-year-olds with the heart problems. Now I'm seeing 30-year-olds. And so he started doing some research and he started doing some studies. In one particular study, he took 17 men that had diagnosed prostate cancer. Within 3 months, he had discovered that 460 of changing their diet, meditating, making sure that they were getting proper exercise. Within those 3 months, 468 genes turned off and 53 turned on. And not one of them had another recourse of prostate cancer. So he started looking at how well those genes can turn things on and turn things off. There's another cool study in PBS has a great little 5-minute vignette online about it. It's called the agouti mouse. And so the agouti mouse reproduces really quickly. And what happens is they discovered that if they change the agouti mouse diet within 7 generations, the agouti mouse, which is normally lean and yellow, within 7 generations was extremely round and overweight and turned brown and started showing all these disease markers. So by giving them a crummy diet within 7 generations, their replication just completely transformed. So they put them back on the healthy diet. Within 7 generations, it was back to the healthy, ideal state that it was when it started. Pretty cool. So our choices matter. Our default state is health, but 95% of the choices that we're making are leading to disease. So what do we got? We've got a whole bunch of different stressors in our lives. We've got physical, chemical, and mental, emotional stresses. All of you probably remember when you came in, we had you fill out those stresses, right? The physical, the chemical, and the mental, emotional. And it's those stresses that start to affect us. Now, stress is often thought of as a bad thing, but it's actually a requirement for health. If I go into the weight room and I'm using weights, that stress is going to start to build up muscle, yeah? Right? The stress of gravity actually strengthens our bones. If you go up into space, your bones start to soften because you don't have the stress of gravity, right? That's one of the big challenges they have, and they figured that out with the space station so they can keep Chris Hadfield healthy before he comes back down. The stresses of everyday life is about making sure that the stress doesn't exceed your ability to adapt to it. If it exceeds too high, well, that's not good. So if I jump off the building and land on the pavement, probably going to exceed how much stress my leg can handle before it breaks, right? So stress is neither bad or good. It's just stress until the outcome is found out, okay? So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're maximizing those requirements and we're minimizing the detrimental stress that it has on us. So, what do our genes expect? Like I said, they're a blueprint. They're passed down, and they're a blueprint to tell us how to express health. And I say that because if you cut your finger, what heals you, your body or a Band-Aid? Your body does. If you have an infant, I don't know if you knew this, but an infant can take the breast milk of a mother and turn it into the building blocks that is needed to rebuild and grow the eye, right? That's where they get their nourishment from. It's the only thing they get their food from, but yet their bodies, like, see all the kids in the office here, it's amazing to watch them in a span of 2 weeks. Their bodies and their faces and everything just changes like unbelievable, right? Their cellular turnover is like 9 to 10 times that which an adult is. And so when you look at that, they're taking breast milk and they're turning it into the cells of the body. That's pretty awesome, right? Your body can take Coca-Cola and turn it into a cell and use the building blocks to make cells. Now, I would say that broccoli is probably a better choice, but you get the picture. So what do our genes express? What prompts the kind of gene expression that's going to give us supreme fitness? What's the kind of gene expression that's going to give us supreme nutritional health and cellular vitality and vigor and everything else? Or what is the gene expression that's going to give us pain, sickness, and suffering? Those are the other sides of the equation. All right? So in order to satisfy and start to build these requirements, we've got to understand that we've got, from the way in which we approach things and the choices that we make, we've got to look at it from building ourselves and looking at how we do it, okay? So the first thing we got to do, and these are going to be our steps to rebuilding and starting to look at things different, but we're going to develop a conscious philosophy. And we're going to dive into that, but a conscious philosophy, most people, they get up, they check their phone, they start reacting to traffic, they start reacting to emails, they start reacting to bosses and coworkers, they react to family crises, they handle stuff, and then they go back to bed and they go do it all over again the next day, right? They don't think about consciously deciding, what does my health and fitness mean to me? What does my social life mean and look like to me? What does it mean to be a good friend? Like we ask the kids this all the time, is what does it mean to be a good sister? What does it mean to be a good friend? What does it mean to... And so they start to define it for themselves based on where they're at. Because how many times have we done things, maybe it's stuff like this, where you've gone in and somebody tells you how you're supposed to do something, and it's like, yeah, that's not... I don't like that. It's not really me. That's not how I want to do it, right? So you read a book and you're like, oh, and you get all excited. Yeah, I'm going to do that. And then it just fizzles out. This is coming from within, because now you're going to start to become empowered to understand how you define it. And then you've got to continue to redefine it as you go. Otherwise, it's not a conscious philosophy anymore. So we've got to build up our self-esteem. This is huge, especially in our kids. So understanding and helping them to understand how to build themselves, so that way they've got this armor, we call it the Teflon suit, so that anything that's coming their way just bounces right off of them, because they know in their mind who they are, what they stand for, and why they stand for those things. That's empowering. We're going to create a vision. We've got to know exactly where we're going and how we're going to get there. We got to make sure that we identify what our purpose is. It doesn't have to, and we'll talk about it. And then we've got to make sure that we're taking action. So, how do we develop our conscious philosophy? You probably saw this in my email. I'll let you read it. This is one of my favorite quotes of all time. I first heard this in first year of chiropractic college. And the reason why is because my instructor was telling us that we had to choose how we were going to start to look at health and how we were going to start to look at our own lives and where we were going to take them. So, as a human being, you have no choice about the fact that you need a philosophy. Your only choice is whether you define your philosophy by a conscious, rational, disciplined process of thought and scrupulously logical deliberation, or let your subconscious accumulate a junk heap of unwarranted conclusions, false generalizations, undefined contradictions, undigested slogans, unidentified wishes, doubts, and fears thrown together by chance, but integrated by your subconscious into a kind of mongrel philosophy and fused into a single solid weight, self-doubt, like a ball and chain in the place where your mind's wings should have grown. Just the other day at hockey, I was talking to and we're going to get right into this because this is exactly along the same lines, is one of the guys that was sitting next to us started talking about getting older. And as you get older, your body just, you just can't go like you used to. You start putting on weight, things start stiffening up, you start slowing down. And so a friend of mine, we're sitting there, we started challenging him on that belief system. And we started asking him, I said, well, where, anyways, by the end of it, he was like, I'm just making a ton of excuses, aren't I? So let's talk about some of the philosophies that we have with regards to health. Health comes from pills and surgery. So if I have an ache or a pain and I take a pill and it goes away, well, I'm healthier. But if the pain is there, something's wrong and I'm unhealthy, right? That's a common belief system. If I had cancer in my pancreas and they removed my cancer, it's gone, I'm healed, I'm healthy. I don't have any problems anymore, right? Have you heard people say this before? Right? Okay. So, it's my medical doctor's responsibility to keep me healthy. Like, I come here to you to make me healthy, so make me healthy. Like, what do I got to do? Right? A lack of symptoms means we're healthy. This is what we were just talking about. Yeah, I was trying to erase that. I'm like, that's, anyways. A lack of symptoms means I'm healthy. If I feel good, I'm healthy. If I feel bad, I'm unhealthy. Have you ever heard that one? How many times do you hear that one? Oh, I must be coming down with something. I'm feeling like I got something going on, right? If I asked 100 people right now, what is your definition of health? Probably 99 of them would say, when I feel good, I'm healthy, but when I feel bad, I'm unhealthy, right? Does that always mean you're healthy?
If you're truly feeling good, I'd say yes.
Yeah? Okay. So...
Truly feeling good, like not superficial, right?
Yep. Yeah. So what about heart disease or cancer? Can you feel really, really good, but walk into a doctor's office and they say, have you ever had friends that have had that? No? Sadly, I have. Yeah. So people who have gone in for a routine checkup, my yearly physical, my blood came back, something there. And then more testing. Oh my gosh, I've got like a friend of mine actually. His dad was golfing, played 36 holes. The next day, went to the doctor's office, had blood work done. They said, there's something going on with your white blood cell count. Sent him in for more testing. Hodgkin's lymphoma through his whole body. Within 2 weeks, he couldn't even walk to the end of the driveway. He felt great, played 36 holes of golf the day before. But again, how we feel, they say that cancer, you can have cancer in your body for 7 to 10 years before it actually shows up as any kind of sign or symptom. And they say by that point, if you start to feel the pain and symptoms of cancer, 86% of people pass within 4 to 6 weeks following because it's just so extensive. That's pretty scary. Most people's first sign, 47% of people, their first sign of heart disease is a fatal heart attack. So they felt great and then dropped, right? So how we're feeling isn't necessarily, or lack of symptoms doesn't necessarily mean we're healthy. This is a big one. Well, you know what? It's just the way it goes. As you get older, I'm going to get sick. I'm going to break down. I just got to plan for that. I got to suck it up and live with it. I happen to think that life should be more like a torch, burns really brightly right to the end, fizzles out, and goes. It shouldn't be like a candle flickering for the last 30, 40 years of your life. Hanging on, that's not living, in my mind. So what makes us sick? Is it bad luck? That's what my doctor told me when I had sinus problems and bronchitis and was getting sick all the time. He said, well, I don't know. I said, why am I getting sick? My brother isn't. My parents aren't. Why am I? He's like, well, I guess you just got the bad luck, bad immune system. Okay. Bad germs. Do germs make us sick? Some people, but other people in that same exposure don't get sick. That's kind of odd. If germs made us sick, then we'd all get sick. We're all exposed to germs right now. You got flesh-eating virus on your skin right now. It's part of your normal flora. It's supposed to be there. It's part of the normal makeup of your body. We've got strep in our throats. We've got staph in our throats. All normal things. So it's all part of your normal makeup. Bad genes. Well, my dad had it. He had it. Did your grandfather have it? No. Okay, so somewhere along the line, that genetic expression started to happen, and we started to get the expression of sickness, and then we started to see the goody mouse kind of scenario, right? So, a couple won't hurt. I'll just have a few of these, knock back a couple, and it's not going to have that big of a toll on me. So these are some of the things. Like I said, when you cut our finger, what heals you, your body or the Band-Aid? We are self-healing organisms. We have the ability to heal ourselves. We have the ability to function at the highest level that we possibly can. Does that mean we're going to be perfect? No. What it means is our bodies are going to be able to function at the highest level possible. There is changes within our structure. If I lose a leg, I'm not going to grow it back. But I am going to be able to function at the highest level that I possibly can, given the fact that I'm missing an appendage or a gallbladder or whatever. We have the ability to heal at the highest level that we possibly can. Does that mean you're going to cure yourself of HIV or cancer? Probably not. But you have the best chance of functioning at the highest level possible to deal with that. Does that make sense? Okay, so health comes from the inside. We know that health happens from the inside out. That's the other one. When I feel good, I'm healthy. When I feel bad, I'm sick. What Bruce Lipton, who's a famous microbiologist and immunologist, what he looked at is that of all of the factors contributing to all of the cancers known to us, 5 to 10% can be directly associated with genes, and the other 90 to 95% comes from the environmental interaction, our choices, and the interaction with our environment expressing those genes. There's 5 to 10 that, like, literally, it's in the genes, you got it, you're getting it. But the rest was all from our environment and the exposures that we have repeatedly. Pretty wild, right? And then again, you can see the makeups. Diet is a big one. Tobacco use is another big one. So, like I said, a lack of symptoms doesn't always mean we're healthy. This chart is the one that we always focus on, because when we talk about function in the body, we need to understand if health is not about how we feel, then we got to look at how we're functioning. So when we do those scans with all of you, that motor nerves is the signals that are going out to your muscle scans, right? It's the signal interpretation of how your body is sending messages to your muscles. It's also telling us a little bit of, on our Facebook page I just posted the other day, it's this amazing network. It's the entire nervous system with all the bones, all the muscles, all the connective tissue, everything removed, just nerves. And it looks like one giant big antenna, and that's really what your nervous system is. It's a giant big antenna that has sensory receptors everywhere to perceive how your body is interacting with your environment. That's all controlled down, back and forth through those motor nerves. And then the other one is your autonomic nerves, how it controls your blood vessels, your organs, etc. Only 6 to maybe 13% can actually transmit the signal of pain. Yet how do people usually associate their health? By how they feel, right? So we're missing a huge part. We can be feeling really, really crummy, but have really good function. So meaning that, I always use this one, but if we have food poisoning and you get diarrhea, vomiting, and fever, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a good thing. We've talked about this, right? Why?
You're flushing out whatever you need to flush.
Yeah. It's horrible. It's symptoms. You feel crummy, but your body's trying to do exactly what it needs to get rid of it, to get back to health as quick as possible. Okay? The same thing is we can have, that's what we say, like we're not, people probably think I'm callous sometimes when a kid comes in and has a fever. I'm like, yes, their body's doing exactly what it's supposed to. That's exactly what it's designed to do. Don't interfere with it. Let it go, obviously with appropriate care. You want to support the child through it, not try to mask it, shut it down, give them the Advil or the Tylenol, suppress that inborn ability to try and deal with that infection, because I guarantee you it'll come back and rear its ugly head in a much more deeper way, meaning that we'll see it repeatedly. Kids start getting repeat ear infections. It'll start going deeper into their sinuses, and they'll start having more and more challenges. The more and more you try to fight the infection, the harder it is to get rid of, because it just pushes it deeper and deeper and deeper. We've got to deal with it. Yes, antibiotics have their place, but we've got to be able to make sure that we're supporting that child through the process, not just trying to mask the symptoms. Because a lot of times people just pop pills for the sake of every little wind gust that comes their way, right? We don't want that. We want to talk about controlled and appropriate manners. Okay, so that's when we talk about health. And I guess back to that point is that when we talk about health, and we're going to get into this a little bit more in depth, but when we talk about health, we got to learn to understand how we define health and fitness for ourselves. How do we appropriately determine what does it mean for me to be healthy? Does it mean that the more drugs and surgery I take, the healthier I become? Does anybody agree with that? Does it have its place? Is it a branch of the tree that possibly can help us in times? Absolutely, 100%. But when it comes to it, how do I make sure that I keep myself healthy? If you do resonate with that idea of burning like a torch, how do I make sure that I'm doing that and keeping myself as healthy as I possibly can and making sure that I don't get into that flickering situation? What do I have to do on a daily basis in order to make sure that that happens? Right? And then we start jotting it down. The doorman principle is all about our values. It's about what it is that is important to us, how we define those values. And the reason why it's important is because if you have something that you try to make a stand on, if you're not firm on it and you don't understand how clear that value is, you start saying yes to everything. And if you start saying yes, is that exhausting for anybody? You start saying yes to everybody and everything, and then you start beating yourself up for doing that. Or how many times have you said yes to somebody, let them into your life, and then it's really, really miserable to get them out, right? You're like, why did I say yes to that? That's the doorman principle. The doorman's main job is to keep certain people and things out of your life and only allow certain things in. So when you have this values filter, you start to allow certain things in, you say no more, and you start to be able to define what's important to you and how you're going to, and who you're going to let in. Does that make sense, everybody? This is huge because, like I said, if you don't define that and you are, like I said, if you get people into it's a whole lot more painful to get them out once they're in, and it's a whole lot more of a scene. So, and that's just people, but if it's things and investments, or if it's, again, that Peter principle, if the philosophy is wrong and we've got the effort and time, it's like, oh, I've just invested a whole bunch of time and effort into somebody or something that's not good. So the deliberate practice, and this is actually, it also helps you to understand opportunities versus distractions. Because if your vision is crystal clear, there's nothing that's going to distract. There's no shiny lures, there's no squirrels. It's just, you are going to make sure that happens. And if that is spending time with your kids, oh, hey, why don't you come over for a barbecue? No, I'm not. I'm spending time with my kids. This is my defined time where I'm going to spend time with my kids. That's the doorman. Okay? Usually all the problems that we have in our lives encounter when we start to allow something in that breaches our values, and then we realize in the backside, I let it slip, and something happened. So, back to health. Again, because this is part of the values thing, but and I'm going to share with you at the end of this before I send you home. But what I've done is I've gone through and I've looked at a whole bunch of those different categories that we talked about, and I'm going to go over them again. But for me, this is a big one. This is something that I've written down in a book, and I've got it at home. But my physical health is the most important aspect of my life. When my body is strong, flexible, and energized, it affects my entire life in profound ways. The body is to be nurtured, polished, adored, treated well throughout life. By directly taking care of our bodies, we show ourselves how much we love and appreciation we have for ourselves. I am in full control of my health and fitness. The choices that I make determine my physical health and fitness. The choices that I make have an incredible impact on the vision of health for our children. And if I have contradictions, will those lead to destruction? If I say all that, but I'm smoking crack on the weekends, I'm going to have issues. There's big contradictions, right? The greater the amount of contradiction, the greater the level of destruction. So when we define our values, we got to be really clear that we're constantly checking and rechecking to make sure that we're not contradicting anything. If I'm going and firing back Timbits, but I'm saying only pure nutrition crosses my lips, that's bogus. I'm going to get into trouble, right? So this is what happens is when you start to get good at this, you start to find your own contradictions. You say that you're doing one thing, but you're talking out the other side too, right? So this is a cool thing because then you get to define it for yourself, and then you get to help your kids define it, and then you start getting a ripple effect. So we got to develop our conscious philosophy. We got to understand, how do we define whatever it is. The second thing is we got to build a healthy self-esteem. Nathaniel Branden, has anybody heard of him? He just passed away 2 years ago. He was the one that actually coined the term self-esteem. He was a pioneer in the age. He was a psychologist. He's written so many books on this subject, and he is just masterful at defining it. But you read here, apart from disturbance whose roots are biological, I cannot think of a single psychological problem, from anxiety and depression to underachievement at school or at work, fear of intimacy, happiness or success, to alcohol or drug abuse, to spouse battering or child molestation, to codependency and sexual disorders, to passivity and chronic aimlessness, to suicide and crimes of violence, that is not traceable, at least in part, to the problem of deficient self-esteem. Of all the judgments we pass in life, none is more important as the ones we pass on ourselves. Self-esteem is so critical, and especially in this day and age, in the kind of immediate gratification society that we have, everybody's looking to try and do what is accepted instead of what is defined for themselves. And it's so empowering. When you make a good conscious choice and decision, it empowers you, and you understand who you are better. And there's nothing more powerful than that that's going to help you make other decisions in that same way. So he wrote a book called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. And the first one is living consciously. And it's really, the consciousness is that basic tool for the successful adaptation to reality. It's like, it literally means to be aware of everything and anything. So you're consciously understanding, interpreting everything around you, and you're seeing how people's communication works, how they're understanding each other, how they're defining their own terms. It's one of the things I've really become interested in recent years, is terms, like just words, and how people define them. Because when you ask somebody a question, what they mean about, a certain term or a definition, it's interesting to hear their interpretation of it versus maybe what the actual is. So you dig it out in the dictionary, or how you define it. You know what I mean? So you're consciously understanding how you choose your words and why you choose them. But again, living consciously is trying to behave in accordance to those conscious decisions that you've made. Self-acceptance. The greatest crime against ourselves is not only that we deny our shortcomings, but that we deny our greatness, because it frightens us. It scares us and holds us back. How many Steve Jobs are out there who are afraid to share their genius? I've always asked that question. Like, at the time, Tiger Woods was the best golfer. But I'm like, surely there's got to be another golfer out there who is an amateur, who doesn't have any interest in competing, who has a fear of competing, that may be better. Who knows, right? We don't know what fear of stepping up and stepping to, to present something that somebody like Steve Jobs has done, or something else, right? Like, it makes you wonder how many people out there are just holding back as a fear of rejection, or fear of ridicule or whatever, because they don't have the self-esteem to be able to propel them to do it. Self-responsibility, choosing and making conscious choices and accepting the either fate of those choices or the success of them. My favorite, self-assertiveness. So if you're a Leafs fan and you got to make sure that you let everybody know, you're going to assert yourself and you're going to defend them, even though they haven't won a cup for like 38 or 48 years or something like that. It's to live authentically. It's to understand yourself and to practice how you speak and how you understand and act from that innermost convictions is really what self-assertiveness is about. Living purposely, setting goals, and then making sure that you're following through with those goals and holding yourself accountable to those goals is huge for building your own self-esteem. How many times have you set a goal, you never accomplish it, and it's just sitting probably in the back of your mind somewhere, and you're like, damn it, why didn't I ever do that? Right? You're like, oh, shiny lure. And then you get off and you don't even continue with that thing, or life has changed and you never come back to that. And you're still kicking yourself for saying, I really wish I had followed through and done that. Right? The last one is personal integrity. And what that means is that you've got your values and you understand those, but your values and what you say match what you do. That's when you're in integrity with it. If you're saying one thing and you're behaving in another, behavior never lies. So you're lying to yourself about what it is that you believe. So if you understand yourself and you make the right conscious behaviors, that's when you're in personal integrity at the highest level that you possibly can. Okay? Behavior never lies. So if you say, I'm really into health and fitness, probably got a bit of an issue, right? So, how do you develop self-esteem? This book is absolutely incredible. And the way he's written it is he gives you a ton of information. It is, I believe we have it in our lending library, but you can get it on Amazon. It's only like $5 or $6. But in there, he's got all these sentence stem exercises. So with regards to friendship, I believe that. And then you just work out and write out what you define it as. And he's got them for each one of those pillars. So you go through all of the exercises and you start answering some of these for yourself, and you start to define yourself, and it's really cool because you start to understand how those belief systems that our parents, teachers, and friends and peers all kind of layered on top of us. And you start to take a step back and you look at it and you go, I don't know why I've always believed that, because it's not always true in my life. And then you start to dig in a little deeper and you start to unfold that, you know what, that's a false belief system that I've had. As I get older, I don't think I should break down. My body should be strong enough to withstand the vigors that I go through. Okay? Get a crystal clear vision. So, I was telling my wife, and she got freaked out. I said, well, I want to be 100. I'm 40 now. It's not quite halftime, but it's coming. And she was like, oh my God, I can't believe you're thinking about this. Right? And I'm like, so what do I want to define these next 60 years like? And I'm like, if they speed up anything like the last 10, it's just going to get faster. So if that's the case, what do I want to define my time? How do I want to see it happen? And what is it going to look like? So it's about setting a course and understanding how I'm going to get there and what I want to do. And it's funny because since I started doing this, I just want broad experiences, and I want to accept different things, and I want to be everybody's friend. And then maybe it's just because I'm getting older, but it's getting narrower, and I love simplicity. It's one of my highest values. I love the simplicity of just having, Steve Jobs wore the same thing every single day. It was one of his high values, is simplicity. He just wanted something to work. He wanted a beautiful, aesthetic, technological device that was simple and easy to use, right? That was one of his highest values that he instilled into the company. The same thing with what we say yes to in the house and what we say no to. I was telling somebody today, I'm like, I used to travel a lot for work and for other things. I've really cut that back because now I really like just simplicity of doing my thing, being at home with the kids, and just having fun with friends and that kind of stuff. That's just where I've narrowed that down. Instead of saying yes to all this, I was exhausted. It was tiring. So, if people aren't laughing at your dreams aren't big enough. Step 4, we got to identify our purpose. This is a tough one because, again, the easiest way that I can say that defining your purpose, journaling can really help every day. Spending some time in the morning, just jotting down your thoughts. Today I'm tired because yesterday I was running around and I was doing a lot of stuff, and I find when I'm tired I start to get in, and then you just, you know what I mean? Like you can start to lay out your feelings, your thoughts, your understandings. Like, you know what, today is a great day. I have the best opportunity to show up as the best me ever. And then you start journaling, like, what are the things that I'm passionate about? Oftentimes those life experiences, yesterday my daughter came home and told me that one of the girls at school I really looked at this as an opportunity to teach her about that kind of stuff, right? Those are good ways to do it. This is what happens. This is because like a car that has four-wheel drive, right? The tires at the back push forward, but the tires at the front pull forward. The same thing with your purpose, is the tires at the back is pushing you forward. The vision is what pulls you forward. So think of that analogy when you're trying to define it. Are you purpose-driven or playing in pleasure division? This is society on the bottom. Reactive. React in the morning to emails. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Oh, and then they just go from one thing to another. You've seen these people, right? Like they're just dust storms, just blowing in and chaos. So versus somebody that is clear, they know what they want, they're getting it, and it doesn't matter if you're an assertive type of person or not. We talked about that with self-esteem. It's understanding like this is what I want. This is what I want to do, right? So writing it down, huge thing, an action step. Start journaling. Craft your action plan. If you just think of things and I leave you tonight and you don't even think about doing anything to actually put pen to paper, well, that's not going to help you at all. So we're going to do things repeatedly. We're going to try and create some changes. Excellence is another high value for me. And excellence is not perfection. Excellence is constantly and never-ending trying to improve. It's about being 1% better. How can I be 1% better of a parent? If you're a parent, you probably have had those moments where you think you're the worst parent, right? How can I get a little bit better? How can I break through? How can I make more of an impact on them? And how can I leave them a little bit better than they were, right? That's all about it. So how are we going to do it? You are what you repeatedly do. So if you want to join the 5 a.m. club, it doesn't have to be 5 a.m. If your day doesn't start till 9, well, maybe you get up at 7. Maybe you get up a half an hour earlier and you spend a little bit of time just working on some of this stuff. You journal a little bit, you write a few things down. I guarantee you will find that if you even just so much as get up and write out what you expect your day to be like. Okay, I have a meeting at 9. I have to get this paper in by 3. I've got to do this. I've got to run over to Winners. I've got to do this. I guarantee you your day will be far less reactive and pain and pleasure driven, and you'll have a much easier time getting through the course of it. There will be things that come up. There's going to be ship sinking and other fires you got to put out, but I guarantee you you're going to find your day gets a whole lot easier. And if it falls apart, that's what you can write about the next day. Is you can say, you know what, yesterday I had this whole thing planned and the day fell apart. What I learned about myself is I didn't get frustrated. Whereas normally before I would get frustrated, now I've been able to understand that my purpose and my need was to be there for that person to help them out through that situation. And I was really good at whatever the case may be. Does this seem easy to do? 5 a.m.? I get up at 4:45, so if anybody wants to join me. Okay? So, other things to do is you can do some exercise. If you're so inclined, you want to do some yoga, you want to go for a run, you want to meditate, I find if I meditate, I'll fall asleep. So I don't do that. But something active where I can write, I can do a little bit of mobility, some stretching and some foam rolling and some yoga tune-up ball rolling and things like that. That kind of gets me a little bit more alert and awake. So that's kind of my routine. But okay, so when it comes to consciously making our defining our terms and defining who we are and all those things, the 4 questions you constantly want to ask yourself is, what do I know to be true? What is my vision for this? Why do I want it? And what do I need to do strategy-wise to make it happen? Okay? And in those different categories, we've got health and fitness, character, social life, our love relationships, parenting, finances, intellect, career, spiritual life, and then ultimately, what kind of legacy do I want to leave? What kind of mark do I want to leave? Common ones here, if we don't have a love relationship, hey, you know what? I'm opening myself up for a love relationship, and what I need to do is define what values do I have in the individual that I'm searching for so that my doorman's in place. So that way, I don't have somebody that's going to come in and treat me wrong and not value what I value and start to misrepresent what it is that I want. Make sense? What do I define a loving relationship? What do I define a loving spouse to be like? What do I find myself to be as a loving spouse? What things do I have to do on a daily basis that I feel are needed in a relationship? How do I define a relationship? How do I define my finances? Do I just spend tons of money in every single thing and just, or do I have a scrupulous plan of investing and making sure that I know where my budget is going? Do I check in with my account every day to make sure that everything's coming out properly? Do I make sure that I'm doing things in a proper manner that's going to allow me to continue to do the things that I want to do? How about my intellect? I want to read 5 books a month, and I want to have different subjects. I want to have some on, I want to learn about Steve Jobs and read his autobiography. Or his biography. I want to learn about more about 6 pillars to self-esteem, and I want to be able to write those out, and I want to do those things. What do you know to be true of intellect? Well, let me show you an example of that. I'm going to show it to you after because I think it's going to totally jack up my show and my recording. So, your 7-day get started plan. Tonight, schedule your power hour. Set your clock back 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever. Plan to get up tomorrow morning. Get up early and say, you know what, I'm going to work on the values exercises, which I'm giving you, because you came tonight, and I'm not going to leave you just to go and say, oh, well, I'm just going to, that was great, thank you. Because if you do, I'll kick your butt. What I've done is, and I don't know, we might need some, I can maybe send you the email instructions. Yeah, absolutely. How many? So if you look inside that front cover, you'll see there's a values list. Those are, was it 135 of them? What I want you to do first is you're going to circle 25 of them. Okay? Now this, again, you can do this tomorrow morning. But if you want to do it tonight, you can totally do it tonight too. In fact, that's actually even better. But you're going to circle 25. Then you're going to circle or cross out 15 of them. So you're going to narrow it down to 10. But then I want you to narrow it down to 5 of them. And I want you to keep asking yourself, which is my highest, and start doing the elimination round, where you get it down to at least 5 of them. If you can get it down to 3 of them, that's awesome. But really look through it and think about it and go through that. That can be your first thing that you do tomorrow morning. Spend 20 minutes. Like literally it takes 10 minutes to do it. But sometimes you'll get stuck on a couple, and that's okay. But the idea there is to help you define some of your certain values that you have. In days 2 to 4, you're going to go back, and if you flip to the next page, you'll see that I've given you those 4 questions, and I've also given you the categories. And I believe the first one, we've got health and fitness. So, what do I believe to be true about health and fitness? Well, let's take a look. The other days, you're going to work on your 6 pillars, or you're going to buy 6 pillars, excuse me, and you're going to work on the other 8 categories. So let's see if I can do this. Yes. No. That's not it. Here we go. So what I've done, does this work? Why is this not working? I can't scroll. Come on. Okay. Okay. Let's see if that pulls up. Apologies. Okay. So what I've done is I've written it out actually and typed it all out into a spreadsheet, or sorry, into a Word document for each and every single one of them. So, dang it, I've got them all listed here, right? And then maybe we can see this in small. We can try and cheat. Oh no, I can't even do that. So that was my old trainer there, Matt, if you can see his gnarly physique there. Can I make this bigger? I can. So then I wrote my entire premise of what it is that I defined health to be. Then I started to write the vision for it. And in that, I started to say, like, if I'm healthy and fit, I have the energy at the end of the day to go home and play with the kids. And if they do, then I can show the impact and I can have a profound effect on their everyday. Because, you know, like it or not, you always want to be better than your own parents, right? Like, my parents were great, but I want to be better. So I want to have energy to be able to spread around and to be able to do things with the kids. And I want to be able to ski. I want to be able to ski into my 60s. I want to embarrass them at squash, or, you know, keep up with them as best as I possibly can on playing hockey when they're like 15 or 20. I want to continue to, I'm a goalie in hockey, so I want to continue to play and stop them when they're coming down on me in the ice. Then I wrote the purpose. Again, why do I want it? It really got into the nitty-gritty of defining that, so that way I want to be able to have energy for patients. I want to be able to have energy for my wife. I want to be able to have energy for my friends. I want to be able to be lean and strong and energized, so that way I know what that's like, and I always say, like, you want to be a representation of what it is that you want. You don't want to go to a cardiologist that's overweight and is giving you advice on exercise, right? So you got to embody that, at least in my mind. I make a whole bunch of definitions, and I got these cool quotes in here, and I got all these cool pictures. Then, I can't even show you this one, but I basically lay out my entire workout, my week of how I do it and what I do. I lay out what nutrition that I want, what ratio of proteins and fats, and I just put it all in there. And it's a constant living document that I go back and change, and I'm constantly editing to redefine it. And then I've got, like, I want to get massages at least once a month. I want to go to Le Nordique once a month. I want to go to, I want to focus on yoga at least once every week. I want to do some stretching every day. I want to do so on and so on. This is how much water I drink. This is the kind of foods that I get. I only eat grass-fed beef, and I want to make sure that I've got the highest quality I possibly can afford and I can have, so that way I'm constantly putting good things back into my system. And I do that for every single one of those. And I've got a book that's about this thick in a nice leather binder that has value, because I high value for aesthetics. And that's sitting right in my office on my desk. And I look at it in the mornings, and I scribble notes into it, and then I go back in and change stuff. That's the starting of your document. Okay? Have I got you to think? Has it given you some gusto and some ideas? This is an awesome exercise to do with kids, by the way. Like, if you just sit around the table and you're talking, you know, what does it mean to be a good friend? What does it mean to be a good student? What does it mean to be, you know, what do you want? Why do you want that? And just ask them questions so they start thinking like this, and they start forming their own conscious beliefs about who they are and why they want this stuff. It's really, really good. Okay? Everybody know what they're going to do for their power hour tomorrow? Even if it's only 15 minutes, get up and do the values thing. Go home and do the values thing. It's a really good exercise. Constantly check it. And the cool thing about values is that when you define them, know that at some point they may change. So you got to constantly go back to that thing, check it again, and make sure. And even then, there will be a hierarchy of them. At some point, you may say that health and fitness is your highest priority, but if you have a loved one that's sick, don't be don't be surprised to see that health and fitness gets pushed to the back burner as you start to show compassion for that individual that is sick and needs your compassion, right? But then it comes into an ebb and flow where the hierarchy shifts again. Finance is my focus, and you start saving a whole bunch of money, and then it's like, okay, now I've got to focus on health, and then this starts to dwell a little bit, right? I don't believe in balance. I think it's total nonsense. I think no matter where you shift your focus and your attention to is where your focus and attention is going to go, and something else is going to struggle. So I'm focused on my health and fitness. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to compete in this show or whatever. You're going to be taking time away from kids and family. There's no question. You have to. Because you can only have a certain amount of awareness units that you can dedicate towards one thing or another, and you've got to be able to shift that and be cool with that to be able to find it. So don't be afraid of that. Okay? Awesome. Thanks for coming. Tell everybody. Put it on our Facebook page. I really want more people to do this, and I really want them to understand it. And simple fact is I do believe that if this is my halftime, then I think that all of us have so much more potential and things that we can do, and it's never too late. I was telling somebody last week, I went to chiropractic college with a 56-year-old. Just decided, you know what, didn't like my careers, just decided to get back into something I really liked. Went back to school. So, yep. Been out of school for 35 years. That's, yeah. So, okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.